My name is Scott Stowe. I'm the Executive Director at Gunston Hall, and welcome to George Mason's home. This has been a fantastic project for Gunston Hall because we're really focused on restoring this mansion to its original appearance, as was the case when George Mason built it, and the opportunity to put the wood shingles back on has been a significant part of that stewardship responsibility. The underdecking that we uncovered when we removed the old slate roof was also original, as were many of the nails. So the folks from Rough Roofers not only brought a tremendous amount of craftsmanship to the project, their preservation aesthetic and their focus on maintaining the historic integrity and fabric was a critical part of this project as well.
The architect had to inspect all the wood just because it was the historical original decking. We would tear off the backside, remove the old slate. We would temper it in with asphalt felt paper just to keep it watertight. We were also tarping the roof as an extra precaution each night. We started right after Christmas and wrapped up Memorial Day.
We kept the same crew pretty much start to finish, so we had the same people doing different tasks, like with changing from slate to the cedar shake, the bottom board of each dormer has been removed and taken off, and it's been coped to the stair step of those cedar shakes, so it all conforms neatly.
So you have the same reveal on the vertical notch and the horizontal on every one of these dormers. They had to be individually cut. We always had to make sure that we kept adequate coverage on the bond as we went up the roof so that we didn't have bond over bond where water could get through there. So it wasn't like we just got a bundle of shakes, you grab them, you put them up there, you nail them up there. Every one of them had to be hand selected and picked. So there's a lot of...
And they were all dry fitted first before anything was nailed, and then we could switch them and say this one goes here or this one goes over here.
The gap between the shingles, normally you're at 3/8 of an inch gap to allow the wood to move with moisture content. This one, to match the historic nature of it, was kept at 1/8 of an inch. You'll notice the lead flashings. We actually used lead wool and packed it in there, and it's packed in and beaten into place. It looks like steel wool, and it comes in, so you have those fibers and you have to pack it until those kind of meld together.
As one.
At every break on this roof, from the eave to the sweep, from the sweep to the base of the dormers, from the base of the dormers to the eaves of the dormers, all those courses had to be gauged out. So even though you say, okay, it's going to be 5.5 inches, you're going to take a real life dimension, it's not going to work out exactly at 5.5 inches. And that's where, again, the craftsmanship comes in.
This project is definitely a special one for us. It's such a unique building. And this is the type of work that we love to do. Just being able to restore a historic site like this, you know, it's not something that you get to do every day. The intricacies of the workmanship, just a really special project and very satisfying to see it through to completion.
Before we actually started the installation, it took more than a year to plan and coordinate all this work. The biggest problem for us was the tight schedule. We had only 1 month, no exceptions. We finished installation 3 weeks and before 1 week preparation.
We had to design something to work off of where it could be a progressive installation. And what we had designed was a scaffold that was a rolling scaffold. We were able to get to the high section of the millwork and also work at the lower section, not changing the level of the scaffold.
Obviously, they had swing stages installing the window fronts here. They had a huge scaffold up on the ceiling. They had guys installing all the stones. So we didn't want to set a scaffold that nobody could work around it because there was many trades here. He needed all his equipment up on the scaffold, like saws, table saws, plus the material, plus 6 men. So we had to build something that will be able to push it with 10 guys, and also they will hold all the weight.
We actually had to work around the statue. It came first, early, and it was protected So us having a pipe scaffold that was square, we were able to remove the center section, still stabilizing the scaffold and encompass that thing with the scaffold to be able to reach to the far end of the ceiling. The whole 2 dimensions based on the manufacturing of the material was a big thing. So Matt actually had to build the ceiling, allowing for blocking, allowing for the inner fascia panel, allowing for the correct height. When we first started out the project, if you notice, you got a 90 in the corner. We started out of this corner and we were working to the trough. So what Rulon did for us was gave us a dimension to the short point of the trough. So we ran a string line from point A to point B, and we were able to run our baffles to the trough, where the trough material would be. So at times we had three control lines, and we were working from right to left. But there's over 2,300 pieces in the ceiling. All the grid had to be painted black as we went along. The baffles are hung with 3/4 by 3/4 angles. The baffle went in, screwed to the grid, then the flat panel went in, getting screwed from the back side of the grid. The only thing that really we cut on this entire job was fascia panel, inner fascia board, the trough material. We had to drill all the light holes, all the sprinkler holes. There was 2 panels that Rulon sent that we had to modify, which was pretty incredible, based on every piece fitting exactly where it needed to fit. The hardest thing on the job was critiquing your fellow workers to make sure that the baffles lined up. You finish this, you move the scaffold, you come downstairs, and you look at these baffles, and if they're cocked like this, you're gonna see that from here. So what does that mean? Move the scaffold back and disassemble and get to where you have your problem and fix it. It's called teamwork. It was a joint effort, absolutely.
This is the National Zoo. This is a retaining wall project. This is one part of the job. The other one's inside, but this is the one that has been put up for the Star Award. The length of the wall is 952 feet in length. The tallest part is 48 feet. So it varies, and you can kind of see it tapers down towards the end. This wall was critical for this building to take the pressure off this building so it wouldn't slide into the river. Originally, this wall was supposed to be cast in place, which would have had its own set of challenges. So the precast is a 6-inch, and it's basically, for a better term, a veneer. And there's an air gap between our shotcrete wall and the precast panels, and they basically stack. And you can't really tell where the horizontal joints are. They're blended in pretty well. Typical panels you think of setting up vertically, these are actually horizontal, and it's like a big jigsaw puzzle. It was definitely a pretty daunting task. The biggest challenge was access. They wouldn't shut down the road, so every night with the crane operations, we'd have to bring in the crane, open up the road for the morning, so all the precast had to be set at night. It was tough, and it was during the winter. You know, like everything else, it's always the winter when you're doing your structural work. Evergreen was our painter. They're the ones that did the hand painting. It was a large scope for being hand painted. Total surface area was 22,000 square feet. Each one of these stones was painted by hand. Access was a huge issue for them. We had to get in here to get some lifts in here, articulating lifts. We also had swing stages, and then also ladder work, and then up at the top, we had to build scaffolds. So it was like a mix of every type of access you could think of. We had this painting by number thing that was kind of a unique concept we came up with, and that was the decorators go through and tell the painter what color they wanted the block. So they went back and they would fill in, and then the decorators then would come again Once the painters made all the blocks different colors, they'd come in again and then blend it, make it look natural.
They didn't want you to be able to see any joints in the precast panels, except for the vertical ones every 30 feet. Those were acceptable, but horizontally, they didn't want any repetition, nothing, no pattern. So that was one of the challenges, was making it consistent but random at the same time. On a typical day when you came out, they had 2 swing stages hanging from the top. They looked like window washers. They would have 2 men in each. Then they also had a ground crew that was coming along the foundations, and because the landscaping of course wasn't here, so they were able to stand on the foundations of the wall and paint from the ground up. And then they also had a lift that they were working off of. I think when I look at this wall, I'm most proud of the size and how natural it looks and how much it blends in. I think that there's a certain look that the zoo wants to keep. I think that it really does a great job of being part of the park. There was a lot that went into, we had to do a full mock-up for the owner. There was a lot that went into the approval process. So one of the things I'm proud of is our team and our subcontractors, and how consistent and thorough we were. And this whole time we just kept Smithsonian's goal in mind, that what the product they wanted, and that's what we kept our priority. Sometimes it got frustrating and tedious, but we just kept at it. They came out every morning to inspect what we've done, and sometimes they said, we want a little more brown, and it's kind of vague, but say, okay, next time we'll do a little more brown.
Yeah.